Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. My name is MiAh the King, and I stayed up all night trying to figure out where the sun was. Then it dawned on me. Now then, today we're taking a look at a game just released on Steam called Endzone 2, a sequel to Endzone 1, kinda. Now, I played the first Endzone. It was alright. So I'm kind of hoping this one is either as good, if not better, than its predecessor. But Endzone 2 is a city builder, but taking place in a post-apocalyptic world, an idea that I've really loved but rarely seen done very well. Developed by Gently Mad Studios and published by Assemble Entertainment, released in early access and selling for $25. So, what is this game? Well, it's just exactly what I said earlier, honestly. It's a city builder game taking place in a post-apocalyptic setting. I mean, if you don't know what city builders are, then I guess I'll explain. It's a type of game built around the object of building a city. See? Simple. Build houses for your people to live in, farms for them to have food, lumberjacks to cut trees and give you resources to build more stuff. Got it? That's pretty much this game. No real story, just survive and keep your people happy. Now, let's go into the good and the bad, followed by my final thoughts. So up first for the positives is the gameplay. I was actually a little bit frustrated at first while I was playing. It just seemed like so much to look at and understand and try to learn and figure out. However, the longer I played, the more it started to flow and become a bit simpler and easier to understand, thus making it a little bit more engaging, which made it more fun. Overall, the gameplay, in my opinion, is pretty solid, and it's also simple while complex. What do I mean by that? Well, allow me to explain. So, basically, you need to build houses for your people, right? You also need to give them basic resources to survive, like food and water. So, you know, so far, fairly simple. You build a fishery for fish, a jetty for water, and homes for people to live in. Good, simple, easy, right? But then it gets a bit more complicated the more you get into it. Build a weaver, which uses fiber that you have to farm, along with water that you gather to create cloth, which you can then combine with coal, which you get by burning logs that you gathered, to create gas masks to protect your people from radiation. Starting to get more complicated now, right? And there are dozens of things like this in the game. So it is simple, but also complex, and not in a bad way. And it made sense. It was pretty straightforward and interesting, and because it made sense. The gameplay is what you'd expect for a game like this, which is why it's in the positives, but they go one step further by adding a couple of new features I've yet to see in city builder games, at least in this way. They have a trading function, a resettlement function, and an exploration function, and a scavenging function as well. You get this giant map and you can form settlements in different areas for different available resources, and then you can connect them via trade routes using your bus as a transport, so you can transport goods back and forth. Like, this place can only mine this or can only farm that. This place can't, so let's set them up so they're trading different resources with each other. It's a pretty cool idea, one that I don't see a lot of in city builders. But again, they go one step further and give you a cool top-down exploration scavenging kind of aspect to the gameplay as well, for when you go out to scavenge materials from the old world. I mean, look at this. Look at how cool this is. This is pretty badass. I almost feel like I'm playing a top-down survival RPG. I mean, this is just a really cool idea, and it's blended very well into the rest of the gameplay in every regard, except one. This is the only way to obtain research points. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Why make this the only way to obtain research points? It is so frustrating because every single time I need to progress further or learn something new, all while managing my people, I then have to stop everything I'm doing and immediately head out to explore ruins and focus all my attention on that, and I've got to do it over and over and over again because after a while you start to need 2 or 3 research points just to unlock the next segment. So you have to go and explore these places. You don't get to choose, you have to do this to get the research points so that you can continue what you wanted to do previously. So then after you do the scavenging and you get the research points, after all that work, now you can go back and finish managing your city. Oh, and yeah, that means that there's a tech tree that you need to use to unlock new stuff as well. And as for the tech tree, it's, other than the whole research point accumulation system that I don't like, the research tree itself is fairly basic and straightforward. But besides that stupid research point accumulation system, everything else with the gameplay works really well and makes sense. It's addictive and it just really makes you want to keep playing, which is a great sign of good gameplay. The next positive point that I'd like to talk about is the user interface and the stability of the game. I'll include controls here too. A failure I see in a lot of games like this is the controls or the UI, as some devs just don't understand what is best for players when they're playing these games. Well, luckily these guys seem to get it. The controls are what you'd expect and want them to be, as well as being responsive and smooth. It just takes a couple minutes to figure out what control scheme they're using, and then you're good to go. I personally like the UI. I think it's fine. It's not the prettiest, but it does its job really well, and it's easy to read and navigate, so for me, that was a good thing. And then you've got the stability. For me, the game never crashed, froze, dropped frames, or anything, so it ran really smooth, which of course makes the gameplay a lot more engaging. The next positive point that I'd like to talk about is the tutorial. It's got its own kind of story, which draws in player immersion. It's step by step telling you what to do while letting you also then do it, so you can learn hands-on, and it makes sense and it isn't overwhelming. I was actually learning the game pretty easily and able to figure out what or how it wanted me to do things thanks to its teaching. I mean, I love a good tutorial because when I play something new and different, I'm fairly lost. Could I bludgeon my way through most? Possibly, but it's still better to know why you failed at a game rather than not because you had no idea what was going on. But here, I was able to learn the game really well thanks to its voiced tutorial and easy to understand language, so that was a good thing. I like knowing what I'm doing, and if I fail, at least I know why I failed. Alright, so those are all the stand-out-ish things that I felt worth mentioning in the positives. Next up is the negatives, but before we go into that, I got some shameful self-pandering here. I need you, that's right, you, to help my channel grow. It's just how YouTube works. So if you could consider helping my channel grow, I would be super grateful. Like, comment, and subscribe to help my channel grow, especially if you find this video entertaining or informative, because that means I'm doing at least something right. Alright? Alright. Thank you very much. Now then, on to the negatives. Keep in mind, this game is still in early access and some of these are subject to change or improve, but, you know, I still need to mention them. So the first for me is the graphics. I think the game is ugly as hell. I hate the look of this game. At first, I thought it'd be really nice. I mean, look at this opening cutscene. I mean, it looks really good, right? But then you get into the game and it looks like this. I mean, to me, it can't just be me, right? It just looks so ugly. I don't understand developers who make post-apocalyptic city builders, and they always make them look like this. I mean, I've probably seen a half dozen games like these in the past year, and they always look ugly. Like, now I get it, you know, it's the end of the world and nothing is supposed to look pretty and it's supposed to look dirty and grungy, but when I say ugly, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that the buildings always look the same. The environment always blends in with the buildings. There's no good contrast to differentiate between the two different types of buildings, resources, or whatever. I mean, look at this clip. Can you tell which buildings are which or what their function is from just looking? Like, I got two docks. You see the two docks up there? Can you tell me which one's a jetty and which one's a fishery? Yeah, neither can I. I can't tell any of my buildings apart except for the really big one that's a giant mine because they're digging into the ground. I mean, I can't tell what they are, and I'm the one who built them. I have to manually click on each building to figure out what it is. Now, when you zoom in, it does get a bit better with some good attention to detail in the specifics of the little things inside each building, but it just needs some more ironing out. It's all too samey and just scrunched together and just doesn't look good to me anywhere. The best the game looks is at the opening cutscene, and sometimes when you go scavenging because you're not forced to look at everything, and they've got a lot of attention to detail in the scavenging because there's a lot of stuff you need to look at, so it does look better there, but when you're actually looking at the city, it just looks ugly to me. The next negative point I want to talk about is the sound design. Now, it's not all bad. I want to say that first. The ambiance is really awesome when you zoom into your city, and the sound effects are pretty realistic and on point, and I love listening to, like, the birds and the wind and the construction sounds, the hustle and bustle of a city. Like, it does sound really good in that regard, but the voice acting is not even passable, and the music is just torture. It's just awful. What is that sound? I was hating listening to the game. The only time it was decent was when the music actually left and all I could hear were the sound effects and the ambiance. But the music was never gone for long, so I knew it was coming back. I really hope they change the music or something. As for some of those voice actors, it's just embarrassing sometimes. Unfortunately, I don't have a clip of that, but most of the time it's fairly passable, but every now and then you get a voice actor who was not giving their best effort here. And last but not least, I just got to make mention of some of the gameplay components. Now, for the most part, as I mentioned earlier, the gameplay is pretty solid and legit, but I've got a whole pile of things that just need looking into. The only way to gain research points is by scavenging. I hate this, and it really slows you down and can seriously screw you over. The tutorial making you build a whole city before teaching you about roads. I didn't even know if I could build roads, or if they even mattered in this game, because some city builders, they don't even matter. So my buildings were placed haphazardly, and by the time I realized that they were important, it was too late to fix it. The game wants you to build all these different things in these specific areas, but they don't give you enough room in these said areas to build all the things you need without it looking hideous and being entirely ineffective. And I think that's it. There might be more, but this video is already too long, so I need to end it. But that's pretty much all the bigger negatives I felt worth talking about, so on to my final thoughts. Overall, I think the game is pretty solid. It does have voice acting, it's got a lot of depth to its gameplay, it does have promise with the sound design and its gameplay. There's a lot of content here, and all this for only $25. Now, $25 still might be a little bit too much for an early access title like this. However, when you think about everything included in this game and how long you'll be able to play it or replay it, and I don't know, I think $25 is pretty legit. Honestly, I think this game is worth its asking price, and it's not ripping you off or screwing you over. The game is fairly solid, and while it does have its issues, they aren't the worst, and they don't really ruin the experience. They can be a bit annoying, but that might just be my opinion. Objectively, I don't see any reason not to recommend this game. It plays fairly well, it's not broken, and despite some sound design issues and a few gameplay tweaks that need to happen, I think it's fairly harmless. So if you find this game remotely interesting, or if you're a fan of city builder games or post-apocalyptic games, then yeah, I think you could probably enjoy this, so maybe consider giving it a try. It's not bad, and it's got some real promise. That's the key takeaway here. Alright, so that's all I got to say for this video, everybody. Thanks so much for watching, with a special thanks to those of you who stuck around to the end. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.